This is Scott Spears, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Scott Spears Now here on WGH Talk. And this week we're going to have a fun time because we are joined by a gentleman who I've interviewed many times over the years, but it's been quite a while, maybe close to a decade since we've gotten together. So I'm so glad to have him here, longtime Marion resident, legendary basketball coach in the Basketball Hall of Fame, Sports Hall of Fame at Bowling Green, longtime principal at Marion Catholic here in town, and even thought about running for mayor of Marion at one point, Fran Voll, and had a show on this station for a while. Yeah, Fran, it's good to see you. So good to be with you.
Good to be with you, Scott.
Fran, what have you been up to? It's been a while.
Well, just technically classified retired, but I seem to keep pretty busy. I am doing things still at Bowling Green as far as some of the programs that they have up there. I served as 9 years as a trustee, and those were good years. I think I went off that in 2016. And now I picked up some other things like the Ohio Basketball Hall of Fame on the executive committee. And in fact, I was there today. We're getting ready to induct our 2026 class. And that is only about 12 years old. And it's been fun because we have started something that probably should have been started a long time ago, like at Indiana and some of these other states that were way ahead of us. We are honoring those people that in all different types of basketballs, whether it be women, men, young or old, pro or college, high school or whatever, we're honoring those folks to the world of what they've done in that sport.
Obviously, you're staying very busy, but what's it like to be retired, not to have to be somewhere every day?
I think it's much better than what you have when the bells are ringing in a schoolhouse or those kind of jobs. But I think you have to budget your time. I think you have to decide what is best for you as far as an individual is concerned. You can sit back and maybe not do much. I elected not to go that route. I want to stay busy. I keep a calendar at home. I have my days planned. And I think for my mentality and what I've done all my life, I think that works better. But you know what? I've got control of a lot more things than what you have when you're working.
You know, it's interesting. When we were walking into the building here, you were born in this building, you said.
That's right, on a Christmas Day.
Christmas Day you were born here.
1943.
1943. So 81 years ago you were born in this building.
Yes, and I'm not sure I've been in it since.
Really? So an interesting return here today.
Yes,
81 years later.
Yeah.
When you've driven by this building, which was also City Hall after it was the hospital, what do you think of being born here?
Well, I think how remarkable it was that we would have had a building like this back in those days, to be perfectly honest about it. Most people in a lot of locations were being born at home. And Marion was certainly on the right move, direction-wise, to have had a city hospital. I guess it was a city hospital it was called, and it's a pretty good size.
I'm still amazed by this building in that it was the hospital, then it became the city hall, and then it became private offices. But the structure of this building is still very, very good. And this building is quite old at this point.
Well built.
Well built. It was well taken care of.
Yes, it has. It's been well taken care of. And if people haven't seen it up close, and I did today, I was struck by, gosh, how well it's weathered the storms.
Yeah, they've taken very good care of it over the years. Want to go back 81 years ago, Fran?
Sure.
Where were you born? What was your childhood like?
Well, it was a great childhood. Marion was just a great town to be raised in. My dad was a tailor. His father came over from Germany. Went to his cousin's house as a tailor in, I believe it was down in Circleville. He made his way up here because of the industrial situation and the railroads, and set up shop here in Marion as a tailor. In those days, you recall, most suits and most clothes were tailor-made. You didn't have the ready-made type of clothes that you would have had with pennies coming on the scene and those kind of stores. But that's only a couple generations removed for me on my dad's side. My mother's side was an Irish family that lived up on Mark Street, and my grandfather was 50-some years a worker at the Uber shop, and it was pretty interesting. We were all raised on Lafayette, which when my father and my grandfather built that house on Lafayette, it was one of the first houses that was built that far east. Other ones were built, but it was one of them. And that was kind of a new territory going down Mine Street and out Mount Vernon Avenue in those days.
So in the 1940s, how would you compare Marion to now?
It's hard for me to do that because we didn't have, when I was real young, TV wasn't on the scene as it is today, and obviously everything is so technology-wise, much different. The King's Mansion was our playground, and that would have been the old Kling estate, back in the early manufacturing years, and we were outside a lot. And I don't remember being in front of watching the TV to any great extent until I maybe got more towards high school or that type of a situation.
It's very interesting because the 1940s, broadcasting started here in 1940. So these are the days of Madge Cooper on the air here.
Yes, I remember.
And these are the days of also the Shovel being a big manufacturer here in Marion. So that is a very, just 20 years removed from the presidency of Warren Harding. A lot of people who knew him were still alive and still here at that point. So it was a very, I think, up time in Marion.
My father was born in 1901, and he was 43 years old when I was born. So I had an older father, but he was very wise to knowing what was going on and how things were progressing and so on and so forth. And being a tailor, he did a lot of work for the attorneys downtown, and I can remember as a kid, Friday nights, I was talking to somebody about this not too long ago. Friday nights were crowded nights on the sidewalks of Marion, Ohio, in the downtown area. It was a big night, and everybody seemed to congregate in those areas. And it was fun. It was fun. You don't realize what you're going through when you're going through it, but as you look back, we went to the stores downtown, the Euler store, the Frank store, the Sutton and Leitner store. I remember Jim Dugan's. My dad ended up working for Walter Axel at Richmond Brothers after he closed his private shop because he just wasn't able to survive with people buying clothes off the racks. So he went to work for Walter, and golly, he did a lot of alterations and so on and so forth in that location on East Center.
I've been thinking a lot about this summer and really in the last year because we've lost people who I got the chance to interview at the end of their careers, like George Casotis recently left us, George Turoff in the last few years.
My father sponsored George Turoff when he came over to this country.
Is that right?
Yes, he was a tailor by trade, and he had to have a sponsor that was in that trade. And he came over and worked for Dad for a while until he went to work for his uncles.
And it was amazing. Turoff's downtown was the place to go for pies and all kinds of other food. Yeah. I just saw Mrs. Turoff not too long ago. She's still out and about, and very nice, good people like that. Marianne Michaels, who you knew, Marianne Stolarczyk.
Sure.
And she's just gone in the last year. But these were such just wonderful, fun people.
Times change. There's a new group that has arrived in Marion. I think we get that feeling. They have big ideas and doing good things. And that'll be your next discoverers of this area.
The group that comes in.
There's always a group coming.
You always have to be optimistic.
Absolutely.
That things will in the future will be as good as they have been, or better. When you were growing up, what'd you want to be?
Well, I wasn't sure. I was a normal guy that liked to do a lot of things as a kid. And sports were always a big thing in my life, and I enjoyed them, and enjoyed watching them and playing them, and so on and so forth. And we always had a game of something going on those years, and the little leagues and the pony leagues and colt leagues and whatever. I wanted to probably, deep down, wanted to be a teacher. But I don't know if I really took it very serious about doing that until I got to later on my years in college. I knew I was going to go to college, but later on I was a business major, and actually and wanted to give teaching a try at that point in time because I wanted to see what I thought about it. And it worked out as a junior high teacher for a couple of years. And I like coaching. So I put my any things I had in mind about being an entrepreneur or an advertising person or whatever into working with kids.
You know, it's interesting. How did you get involved with the Bowling Green athletic program?
Well, I was very fortunate. I graduated from Bowling Green in 1968, but I started teaching in 1966. I had, and you know all about this, Scott, being a student. I had a couple more courses I had to get in, but they needed teachers real bad. I'm on a temporary certificate. Taught at Northmore High School with my old friend who's no longer with us, Jerry Witter, and spent 2 years with him. And I thought, well, I like coaching. I really like coaching basketball. That was kind of my thing. And I had an opportunity to go to Delphus St. John's. And that's a high school over on the other side of Lima that had great background of success in basketball. A guy by the name of Bob Arnson was the basketball coach. And my friend John Gunner, who was the Gunner Funeral Home descendant, and I were in the same class in high school. John calls me and said, there's a business teacher position open here, and you think you want to interview for it or think about it? I said, I'd love to. So I went over and talked to the coach and talked to the principal and became a business teacher and spent 16 years at Delphus St. John's. In 1975, having been with the boys, the girls came on the scene. And we were down at the boys' state basketball tournament, and Father Parker was our principal, and Bob Arnson was the boys' coach. They looked at me between games. We were, I think, playing cards or doing something, and they said, Fran, you need to take our girls. And I said, what? I don't think I want to do that, but this was new. This was all new stuff. I mean, I know the women had played and girls had played, but this was becoming the Title IX age now. So I did that. They wanted to have a good program, and a lot of schools didn't know how to, I don't think at that time, approach it. Maybe they didn't have the coaches around or available. I think everybody wanted to have a female coach, but there weren't a lot of them. And for me, they wanted somebody, to be honest, that was somewhat knowledgeable that could fill in and become part of that group of that sport. Whether it be boys or girls. So I did that. And lo and behold, I was fortunate enough to go down to state tournaments 5 times and won at 3. I had a pretty good record in high school. And Bowling Green University came after me.
Well, and
I was associated up there because I knew a lot of people, obviously, because that's where I was going to school.
And I think this is right. I checked on this. 71% win-loss record. Is that right? That's what's up. That's what it was.
In high school,
Or was that at Bowling Green?
that was a Bowling Green.
71%.
High school was better, a little better than that.
Even better than 71%.
Yeah.
And I think at Bowling Green with the girls team, there was a game, a championship game, that still holds the attendance record.
Yes.
Yeah, how many people were at that
40,
game?
4,300 people.
43.
That was before anybody thought of drawing 4,300 people.
So how did you achieve this with the girls team in that era?
I went to every service club they had in Wood County. Anybody that would listen to me, I told them to come to the game. They're going to like what they see. And it just slowly started to gain momentum, as much as it's doing today with Caitlin Clark.
You know, I was thinking about you because this Caitlin Clark, my goodness, the ratings are at an all-time high on television. The stadiums are packed.
Right.
She's making money, more money than anybody else, I believe, has ever made in female girls basketball, whatever it's referred to as. What do you make of this? It took a long time to get there.
Oh, I think it's wonderful. I think it's an enjoyable game now. I'm not sure that we were as good as we needed to be in those early years. I was fortunate. I just happened to fall into some kids that were out in the playground shooting around the other basket where the boys weren't, and they wanted to be players. And it obviously took us a long ways. And I got to BG. Now I have to recruit. And I was very, very fortunate. I really picked the right people that came together and meshed together, and they were quite a team.
When you think back to that time now in the 70s and 80s, and we see what's happening now with female sports, particularly female basketball because of Caitlin Clark, do you think, well, I was kind of a pioneer in that field, and isn't this great?
Yeah, I guess I never really thought about that a whole lot at the time. I know when they offered me the job, Bob says, I don't know anything about coaching women, Fran, or girls, but I think you coach them the same way you do the boys. So I did. I coached them just like I did the guys, and I just that's all I knew, was to do it that way, and a lot of it I learned from him. So consequently, we became pretty good. Now the coaching's better. The kids who are coaching now, I say kids, young women, men, whoever, they have been schooled in the right directions. They now have a generation behind them. I can remember my mothers wish that they would have had that opportunity when I was coaching their daughters. In fact, I got toilet papered one night, and I thought, this toilet paper on these trees out here is too well done. It can't be kids. It was my mother's. So we had a lot of fun with all that.
Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of people's perception would be that girls' sports and guys' sports are different. But you say coached the same to you.
I think you do. I really do. I think the technical things about the sport, and I think you would apply this to any of them, that both of them play like a volleyball or a basketball or swimming or whatever sport it would be that requires certain movements and mentality. I think you approach the same way.
As you were going through this with a very successful group, team, and teams over the years, why do you think women's sports has always been less funded, less watched, less money than men's sports?
Because we probably weren't very good at times, Scott. I think the early years may not have been as fun to watch, but that's changed over a period of time. And I also found that our sport, for whatever reason, seemed to attract the older folks. Even when I was in the high school level and at the college level, our fan base was not necessarily a real young fan base.
What is the moment from your coaching career that sticks out in your mind the most?
Well, there's several. It's hard to say. The first of all was the great kids I coached and the relationships I still have with them. I stop and think about how old they're getting to be these days, but we still get together. We still have a weekend at Bowling Green every year. Then my players come back, and they have what they call alumni weekend, and it's a big deal. And the tremendous amount of them come back. It's kind of almost a girls' night out, if you know what I mean, because that's when they get back together and reminisce and be with each other as they were for so many hours and so many days in their undergraduate programs. And the same thing happens with the high school kids. And many of them went on to colleges. I had the first girl that ever got a scholarship at University of Toledo, full ride. And I had them, in those days, going to different places to play: Indiana, Dayton, Northern Kentucky, BG, Miami. I mean, we were starting to send them out to those places.
Was there any downside to the career, a down moment, a down game, something that would stick out that was not so great?
I think sometimes there were some times we didn't play quite as well as I wanted to play. And a lot of times that was on the road. It's definitely a different situation in the college game when you're traveling and you're on the road. But for the most part, we overcame most of any obstacles that we had to overcome.
Obviously, very successful coach. Why did you decide to stop coaching?
Well, the recruiting was getting to be pretty hard. I mean, you're on the road a lot. And if you're going to get good players, you got to go where they are, and that means you're traveling a lot. And I just started to notice that my own sons were playing sports, and they were coming up through the ranks in high school and whatever. And I just thought I wanted to take another direction, and I actually became an associate athletic director at Bowling Green after I was coaching. And then the Central Michigan, they were wanting to have a better program, and they called me and said, "You ever think about going back and coaching?" I said, "Well, kind of." So I talked to my wife Marty at that time, and she was a great help. Deceased wife, she said, "Okay, let's go." So we went up to Mount Pleasant, spent 5 years. I enjoyed that, certainly because I saw what another university was doing in different location, different people. Those were all good experiences for me, Scott.
When you were up in Michigan, what was the difference between being at Bowling Green and Michigan?
Very little, very little. Universities were very much the same. We played, in those days, we were playing Michigan State and Michigan. I was playing Ohio State and some of the Big Ten teams, the Purdue's and the Illinois, because there wasn't a whole lot of difference in our program. So I was getting kids that were basically able to play most anywhere. And of course that started to become different as people started putting more funds into it, and the programs became somewhat separated.
It's very interesting to a lot of people that you had a very successful coaching career in college at BG, very successful career in Michigan, athletic director, as you said, in college, and then you came to be the principal of Marian Catholic High School.
I always thought I wanted to come back home. I was gone, left in basically I left in 1968, and I was out and about till 1996.
How did that come to you, the position at Marian Catholic?
Well, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I knew I was going to probably depart from the coaching ranks, and all of a sudden, I didn't have to. The athletic director said, "Fran, don't go anywhere. You want to stay right here?" No, I said, I really think it's time for me to make a change here. But I think at that time, I knew they needed a principal. Somebody must have told them in Columbus that I needed a principal. We were diocesan high school. I got a phone call from down there. "Would you talk to us?" And I said, "Sure." So I did, and I spent 10 years at Marian Catholic. That was the longest tenure principal they ever had.
I think about this going, and now we sit here and there is no Marian Catholic High School.
Right.
So, what was it like to be the principal of Marian Catholic High School in the 1990s and early 2000s?
It was fun. It was good. I have great kids, great parents. The problem was we were not a big school. Marian, a lot of our kids, and this is a concern that I have for the community. A lot of our kids that were going off to college and learning, certain expertise type of positions, they don't come back to Marian. And so over a period of time, your population starts to dwindle. And that's basically what we ran into. We ran into a situation where we had lesser and lesser kids. And I think you're seeing that a little bit in Marian, both now, of course then, but in our public schools and so on and so forth. We've got to do something at Marian about the brain drain. And I think the more we can help that any way possible, it would be really an advantage for the town to have both people moving in and keeping some of your candidates in town here.
It's very interesting because I think 1996, this is pre really internet for the most part.
Yep.
Certainly internet in everybody's home. That
Right.
wasn't there in 1996.
Not at all.
So you come back, cable television is probably at its peak in the 90s, and I remember the commercials that you used to do for Marian Catholic that would air on cable television.
Yeah.
And this comes back to Madge Cooper in a way. I remember being at a dinner one time with Madge Cooper, and she said, have you seen those commercials that have been airing on cable television for Marian Catholic? And I said, yeah. And she said, those are very well done. I remember her complimenting you on how well those commercials were done. This was a different time in education.
It was a different time, and I had to do what they were doing those days.
Yeah.
And it helped. There's no question it helped. But my younger years, we had a tremendous Irish population. In Marian, you had a tremendous Italian population. My mother was born in Mark Street. That was an Irish neighborhood up there at one time. I know I've talked to some people about this kind of thing. The church was on the north side, and you had your various groups that were basically not very far from the old country and immigrating to Ohio, to Marion, Ohio. And it's different today, and we did attract both kids that were of the Catholic faith, and also half of our kids were not. They were of another faith, and that worked out very well for us. It's just that we didn't have ed choice the way it is now. Had it been the way now, it would have closed.
Yeah, it was a very interesting time. Certainly not the way things are now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to say. It's hard to say what would have happened if things would have went in a different direction, because it was an interesting time. Just a few words on pre-internet school, high school, being the principal during a time before internet. What was it like?
Well, you used the chalkboard a lot.
Yeah, that was still there then.
You had it all over your hand and your shoes and everything else. It was. I don't think it's changed a lot, to be honest about it, Scott. I still think you have to look at those kids in the eye and to see what they're learning, and if they aren't learning or they're not learning. I think you have to do that. I go back to the days where we did cursive.
Mm-hmm.
And I get a kick out of the fact that people think, well, we need to bring cursive back in the classroom. Well, the kids, by automation, by computers and so on and so forth, they can pop things out pretty fast. And when it comes to their own writing skills, they print.
They do. We got to step out here for a quick break. We're going to come back with Fran Voll. We've got more. We're going to talk about Marian Catholic and more stuff right after this. Don't go anywhere. Hey, this is Scott Spears with Matt Morgan, 40th President of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow, and former wrestling referee Fred Feeney. Surviving OSU on HBO Max right now. #1 documentary in the country. My goodness, it's the Ohio State scandal, and it's a great documentary. You've got to see it. Fred, in the documentary, you talk about Jim Jordan and his connection to this whole situation. What can you tell our viewers about this?
I know that they know.
Matt, what do you make of this?
I think it's rather unsettling, and I think Ohio State should try to do something to fix it at this point.
Mary Ellen, how do you feel about the whole thing?
I think he knows.
And there you go.
Yeah.
I know he knows.
Yeah.
Hey, Scott Spears back here with Fran Voll. We're having a great time. It's been a long time since I've caught up with Fran, and this is fun going back through his career and life and times and things still to come. And I do want to let people know that this week we are going to have a great episode, kind of a reminiscences. Fran is going to join us on an episode with Mary Ellen Withrow, so that's going to be fun.
She's a fine woman.
Fine woman, and I don't think we've ever all done a show together, so this will be great.
I
when she
can't.
comes
I
in.
can't give out $1 unless I check to see if her name's on it.
You know, I was telling her that the other day. I said, you know, because of her time period being Treasurer of the United States, 94 to 2001, if anybody of that time period will always look at the dollar bill to see the signature because of what she did. It's fascinating, really.
I had a lunch today, and the person who sat beside me had to do with the treasurers of the state of Ohio, and doing promotions and so on and so forth. And we just talked about Mary Ellen Withrow being a treasurer that did schools, county, state, and national.
Yeah, absolute. Only person.
Only
Only
one.
person. So Fran will join us with Mary Ellen in another episode we'll have this week. We're taping tonight. But I want to come back to Marian Catholic, because during my radio career, Fran and I did a lot of interviews, but we did 2 very significant interviews, and I think we did them both at the old Marian Catholic High School, which is out on Route 95. It's now the Harding Academy, I think is what they call it.
I don't know. I think it changed the name. It was Prep Academy,
Yeah.
preparatory, and now it's got something to do with research or with STEM learning.
Yeah, it's right there next to the car lot.
Yes.
So that's the old building's still there.
Yes.
But I remember the first interview we did. Now, people have to understand, the Marian Catholic football team of 60s, 70s was a very good football team. Under former Sheriff Max Ross was a coach. So if you would walk into Marian Catholic in those days, trophies everywhere, all up and down the hall, pictures. Yeah. And Max was still with us at that point. Yeah. They were canceling football. The football program was canceled.
I was there.
And we did an interview at that time. And I remember you as the principal were very honest in the interview about how significant that was.
Oh, very much, very much. I think when I had my talk with the bishop and those decisions were being made, mainly from Columbus, he said, this is going to be a tough deal. I said, I know it is, because that was kind of the heart and soul of the school. I mean, their program, and certainly Max brought that about in all those years, and Ray Robbins before him, and track, and certainly football. And we had those very, very good teams that I was not really around here for, but I certainly knew all the people who were involved.
What was going on internally with you as the principal when these discussions are going on? This is 2010, 2011, in that area.
Well, the concern is always, are we able to sustain the school? That's the big thing when it comes to these places. And I know that there's other schools out there that probably have gone through some similar situations. And maybe some of them today are still having some difficult times. I don't know. But I know the population of a lot of those schools is not what it was.
You know, it's very interesting, because I think prior to that, if you were not internally a part of Marian Catholic, I don't think anybody thought that there was really any trouble going on.
Right.
But that was the loss of the football team, I think, was really a red flag to a lot of people on the outside of the community.
Very difficult. It was. I felt bad for those kids that were seniors. They're good people, and it really hurt myself and a few other people that have to go through those procedures.
When it was finally decided that it was not going to be there, as principal, what are you thinking at this point?
Well, you just really got to look ahead, and you got to keep going, and you can't look back, and you can't dwell in the negative. You got to do as much as you can to make it the positive.
And I do remember, I can't remember what they tried to replace it with, but they tried to come up with something.
Yeah, there were some things, some thoughts and so on and so forth. And, probably soccer maybe have been a possibility. I'm not sure.
But I mean, for people who were not around at that time, or maybe were very young, even when the team wasn't very good toward the end of the football run, just some teams go through cycles, radio would still cover the games.
Oh,
I mean, there was something about Marian Catholic football.
Well, and the fans showed up.
And
the support was great through the Booster Club, and all the things that you had was there. It's just that you have to have a little bit more than what we had at that point.
And interestingly enough, the other interview that sticks out in my mind that we did during that time, it wasn't too long after that you announced that you were retiring from Marian Catholic. What brought that on? Because I don't think people saw that coming so quickly after.
Well, it was a couple of years, actually,
Yeah.
Scott. It wasn't right after that.
Not immediately.
Not immediately. It was a couple of years afterwards. But I had in mind about 10 years, and then I would probably be done. But we were one of the first schools to ever have a dog.
Yeah.
If you remember, we had Jesse.
Yeah.
I got the dog from the Ohio service dogs in Columbus, and that was my contribution to innovation, because I don't think too many people had those.
Yeah. Now, the school did not last much long, the high school, after you had left. Did you think at that point, even though you wanted to go and had thought, this is the time to go, that things might have been coming to an end there?
I really didn't think that at that point in time. I didn't. I thought the school was in capable hands, and it was. But it was certainly on the direction that we were looking, that it was going to get more and more difficult.
When the announcement came, and you were no longer there at that point, when the announcement came that it was closing, what were your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts were for the kids and for the parents. That was my thoughts. I felt very much. I felt for them.
Hindsight's 20/20. Do you think there's anything that could have been done to save it?
I don't know that for sure. It's really hard to say. I don't know where I'd put my finger on to say that could have happened, and I don't see that in the near future of where we were.
When you look back at it now, what is the legacy of Marian Catholic High School?
Well, I think it's got a great legacy. I think we've turned out wonderful people. It started in 1958 with the first class, and we had tremendous graduates that have done tremendous things. We had one man that I became very close to, John Bowler. John was about a 49, 50 grad from St. Mary's, and he was very kind to our school. And I want to always be thankful for the people that showed us support and that were willing to do what they did to make sure that we ran that school certainly as long as we possibly can run it. And John was one of those people.
I did not go to Marian Catholic, but anytime I would go there to do an interview or I would talk with any of the staff, there was something different going on there. It was a camaraderie. There was really, I want to say, almost like a family-like atmosphere in that building.
It was. We had great teachers. Michaela Shipley and Phil Reed was one of my Reed was one of my favorite teachers of all time.
Yeah.
He was a great teacher, probably as fine of a teacher as I've ever been around, ever seen. Al Sider, I mean, you can go right down the line. People that were there that taught for many years and don't really, sacrificed because they weren't making as much as they were in the public schools, and some of them were there a long time.
You know, I even think toward the end of Marian Catholic's run, you were the principal in those last 10 years. Phil Reed was running for mayor while he was a teacher at Marian Catholic.
Absolutely.
Max Ross would still come back and talk to the kid, former sheriff, former football coach, the Menacey family. I remember they would rent out the gymnasium for their dance recitals, Martha and Joe and Marilyn. And
I thought about all those people, I guess. When you're thinking about that, Scott, and the school's going to close, you wonder what's going to happen to those kind of situations.
Yeah.
That's kind of in your head at that point.
But it was really a remarkable time, even as things were slowing down.
Yeah.
That still was there, the good feeling and the good atmosphere.
Well, just wonderful people. I mean, tremendous people that love their school and still a great allegiance to it as far as the graduates of Marian Catholic and even back as far as St. Mary's is concerned. That's been a while since that was a high school, but fortunately we have the grade school, and I remember telling the bishop if we need to have a school, we need to keep the grade school. I thought that was important for that to happen, and everybody kind of thought the same thing too.
What were the inner workings with Columbus and the diocese when these things were going on, these discussions?
There was a lot of good cooperation. There really was, and they were they were helpful in trying to do things that were positive for us and so on and so forth. And I know that it's easy to point fingers, but it just boiled down to the fact that we didn't have everything we needed to have at some point, and then that made it difficult. And other schools have gone through this. I talked to several places and several people, and they all indicated that you're going to have a lot of different feelings that are going to come back to you about that happening. But it wasn't the people, that's for sure.
And another thing that went on very successful for years and years and years was the Festival on the Green.
Oh, exactly.
People remember that.
Yeah, that was a big thing.
Big thing
in Marion.
Yeah, every June-ish, early June.
Every college kids around were coming to town, and if they weren't home, they were going to be home for that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it has a great legacy. And I guess when you look back on it and you look at your time there as principal, what do you think the legacy is from that period?
From that period?
From that period, the 90s, the 2000s, that period.
I think we were strong. I think we certainly turned, we would turn out over $1 million worth of scholarships. And I used to tell people, what we did, we were doing such a good job with our kids that they would get good jobs away from town, never come back. That was a little bit part of it.
Yeah. Now it's very interesting because you retired. You certainly were not an old man at that point. You're not an old man now, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, maybe a little bit older.
A little older than you were then, but not an old. You retire, and it was in the circles around town. You know this. We had talked about it. We did interviews about it. It was pretty common thought that you were going to get in politics, and you were going to run for mayor. I know people asked you that. I asked you that on the air several times, and you never definitively said no in those interviews. You would say, not right now, but never said no. What went on with that? Because that was a big rumor for a long time.
Yeah, well, I certainly was thinking of things that maybe I would want to have done, and that would have been certainly, in the basket. But just never materialized.
Do you think there's any particular reason it didn't materialize?
Well, I don't think there's any particular reason. I think it's just a matter of what maybe the timing was all about and so on and so forth. I had dabbled a little bit in politics when I was in Delphus. I was a city councilman for 10 years. We were the smallest city in the state of Ohio. It was a city, not a village, but a city. Right. And so I knew a lot about the workings of council and what we have with as far as a mayor and a safety director and a service director and so on and so forth. But I thought it would have been certainly something to consider, and but it just didn't materialize. That's the best way I can put it.
Do you ever look back on it and with any, maybe I should have done it? Maybe I should have taken the leap?
No, I try not to do that stuff.
Do the regrets?
I do not. I might have gotten out of coaching too fast. That would be a possibility. That if I look back, but I can't do that now. I thought, well, that's the way it went, and that's the way it was.
When you look at Marion in 2025, what do you see?
I see a better town than when I got here. I came back here in '01, and I must be frank. I was really taken back somewhat about the condition of a lot of things in Marion. But I've seen people go to work, people roll up their sleeves. I like what I see when I see these young people doing what they're doing. The pride that we're taking with the downtown area. I think we're going to get some big breaks coming. I really feel that way. I think we're on the horizon. How big can Delaware County get? Before we start seeing it, and we might be already seeing some of it. But all that is going to happen.
I want to go through some of the people who've been significant here in the city, and all of them are still with us at this point. But what do you make of Mayor Kellogg? The job he did.
He's a wonderful man.
Yeah.
Just a wonderful man. I enjoy Jack. He's a neighbor of mine now, and he was kidding me one day. I said, "Boy, you're doing a good job of that salt and keeping those streets clean, Mayor." And he said, "You know what, Fran? You don't see anything afterwards. There's no payoff to it. That's gone."
Yeah.
That was pretty cute. That was a good answer.
And that's Mayor Kellogg.
That's him.
That's him. And he's still. I just saw him not too long ago, and just a nice man.
Good guy. Marion was fortunate to have him for all those years.
And it's hard for me to believe it's been long enough now to where people have been born outside of Mayor Kellogg. Yeah. But I always tell this story when it comes to when I see him. Mayor Kellogg's first wife became ill. And
was Middleton. She was a Middleton.
Yes. And she became ill while he was mayor with cancer.
Yes.
And we were Madge Cooper comes up again. We were honoring her. And the mayor had said, I'm going to name a day for Madge Cooper. And I said, great. We'll do it as a surprise to her. We were having an event at the Harding Hotel in the lobby. And I thought, this will be great. And the mayor said, I'll bring a proclamation down during the show and we'll surprise her. Because he'd known Madge for a long time. And the week of the show was on a Thursday. That Monday or Tuesday, his wife died. And I thought, well, of course he's not going to be able to come. This is, horrible that this has happened. And I tried to call his office, and I couldn't get the proclamation for whatever reason. We just couldn't connect. I'm sure a lot was going on down there. The night of the show comes, that Thursday night. Here comes Mayor Kellogg with the proclamation. And I said, Mayor, I didn't expect you to be here. And he said, I like Madge. I've known her a long time. I said I would be here, and I'm here. And he was.
That's the kind of guy he is.
That's Mayor Kellogg.
That's right.
That's Mayor Kellogg. We had 16 years of Mayor Schertzer. What'd you make of that time?
I thought it was good years. I really did. I think if I have a concern sometimes in Marion is that we become a little bit too political. I think the town needs to move forward, and we can't trip over our own feet. And I think every one of those people did a great job. Mayor Kellogg did a good job. Mayor Schertzer did a good job. And we're hoping for the best from Mayor Collins. But I don't want to see us become so hung up with some things that we can find solutions for and move on. Because if we're going to be attractive as a community, all these things go into the hunt when people are looking at you.
And again, I'm not laying this on anybody's footsteps, but in the year and a half we've had Mayor Collins, that's very early in his term. Mm-hmm. But something has happened, and it was happening at the end of Mayor Schertzer's term, but something is different. And we are very political now. and the R and the D mean a lot,
Well,
and it's divisive.
It's that way in the whole nation. It's
Yeah.
not just Marion or Marion
Oh,
County.
absolutely not.
But I know when we were younger, I knew what my family was, and my neighbors, I'm sure, everybody knew who they were. But that never washed over into what made a better neighborhood or what made a better community. It just didn't. And we've got to get back to that, Scott.
It's just been shocking to me in the media because I've covered city council for 3 different mayors now, and I have never seen the anger. I've never seen the division. And again, this is not just Marion at all. But I never dreamed. I say this all the time on the air. I never dreamed that local politics would have come to the level it has, because it's almost a down ticket vote now. It used to be it was from the bottom, the local politics up on the ticket. Now it's the complete opposite, and I don't know what happened.
I don't know either. I'm not sure. Certainly, we have a divisive federal government, and I'm not. You can't say who's right. You can't say who's wrong. But somehow we've got to take care of each other and figure it out. Figure out what the best solution is. And I'm not sure we're getting that done. I don't think the examples are coming down from Washington as good as they should be to our local levels.
Well, and it's interesting to me that local politicians especially used to say they were wrong all the time. And I think now people don't do it because they take that as a sign that they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Which it's really not that. I mean, we all make mistakes.
And you don't know what's ahead.
No, you don't. No, you
You
don't.
don't have any idea. You just have to make sure that you cover all your cards.
Yeah. Hope springs eternal.
Absolutely.
Always.
Absolutely.
At 81, Fran, what do you still want to do? What haven't you done you still want to do?
Well, I don't know. I just kind of take it one day at a time, Scott, and we'll see what transpires. There's things that I'm very happy that I've done, and there's some time that I like to maybe spend with my friends, and I think that's the key ingredient as much as anything at this point in time is my family, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren now. Those people are all pretty important to me, and I have enough time and wherewithal to devote to them that maybe as most people don't when they're younger and they're coming up the line, wouldn't have had.
I always like to talk to people about this because everybody in life at some point deals with loss. You just the older you get, it happens. We can't get around it. You've lost people who you knew very well, your wife, unfortunately.
Yep.
How do you get through it?
Well, you just gotta keep on moving, Scott. I mean, I had a wonderful parents, and they taught us to be mentally strong, and as tough as it is sometimes, you just have to do it. And everybody does it differently, but you're temporarily on this earth. We all are, and you never know, maybe what the next obstacle or what the next thing's going to be that you have to deal with. But you have to deal with them.
Can't stop.
Can't stop.
Can't stop. Gotta keep it going.
Gotta keep it going.
Gotta keep it going. When you look back at your life at this point, and again, still more to do, but is there something that you would consider the high point? Something that sticks out?
I think my relationship with people has been a high point in my life. I really do. The friends I've made and the places that it's taken me and so on and so forth, and good people. Just that you learn that those things are basically pretty daggone important. As you get older. You know what I mean? What have you done, and how have you treated people? How have you added to maybe a better place? I think I've done a fair share of that.
And what is it? We don't want to talk about regrets, but was there a moment that you regard as the low point, that you came out of it obviously, but that was not the best time in your life?
Well, your health is always an issue. Yeah, sometimes you get good news and sometimes the news isn't quite so good. But I've been able to hang in with all that, and I really can't say I had such a low point that I didn't know how to turn or where to turn. I think I've always been kind of in a leadership role, Scott. I think that's part of why I'm able to maybe do some things that might be difficult for some other people, because when you're teaching or you're coaching or you're being a principal or administrator, you really have to put yourself in a secondary position.
When you're going, because this is another thing that's common with everybody. Everybody goes through some kind of health concern in life. When you've dealt with a health concern personally, how do you approach it? Because they can be tough sometimes.
Well, you just look for the best. What's the best solution that we might have, and go with it. And typically the medicine today, the way it is, it's pretty good. They do marvelous things.
When you look at your life, the 81 years, the 8 decades, how would you describe it? Is it happy, normal, good and bad? How would you look at your life?
I think I'm above normal. I would say it's not all a bowl of roses. It's not. There's no doubt that there's things that that, as we've talked, you deal with, but you can't dwell on any one thing. You just simply have to patch it together, move it aside, but move on.
Do you have any philosophy that you live by?
I think you have to be good to people and you have to be friendly to people. I remember when I first got to Delphus, the pastor of the church, Bishop Otteweller, he said, "Now, Fran," he said, "a lot of people relate to each other." He said, "So when you go by when you see people, always make sure you acknowledge them." And I've always tried to do that. I've always tried to acknowledge people, and whoever they are.
You were born here. You were born in this building. Kind of interesting. On Christmas Day, many, many years ago, 81 years ago. What has Marion meant to you?
Well, it's been a good town. I was hurt at times when I would hear things maybe a little bit negative about Marion, as opposed maybe to from some other communities, because that was not the way we were. That was not the way we were. This town was a booming place, and with a lot of fine people, and still is. And we have to get back to be thinking about ourselves as being, we're okay. We're a good town. We have good people in our town. And if you don't do that, it's not going to happen. But people have to start realizing that.
What do you make of this social media age we're in?
I don't pay a lot of attention to it, although I am on Facebook.
You have to be now.
Well, I have to be if I want to know what my kids are doing.
That's right. That's how we stay in touch now.
That's how it is.
It's a whole different thing.
Yeah, it is.
It's a whole different thing. Being the principal of Marion Catholic, all you've done in your basketball career, obviously in the Hall of Fame there, still with us doing great things, staying active. How do you hope people remember you when they look back on your life and career?
Duffy's a good guy. A good guy.
Good guy.
Yeah, that would work.
I don't think that'll be difficult.
Well, that would be, I think, what we all want to be.
Yeah. One, I want to let people know we are taping 2 episodes tonight when you see these. This one with Fran has been great to look back at his life and times, but Mary Ellen Withrow, 40th Treasury of the United States, is going to join us momentarily, and we're going to tape another episode, so you'll catch both of those out there. Just search for them. You can watch them at your leisure. That's the way it's done now in the technical world. Fran, it's always good catching up with you. And
Thanks, Scott. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, and we'll be back with Mary Ellen Withrow in another episode just around the corner. For this episode, Scott Spears heading for the dugout.